Welcome to Parent Coaches Unleashed, the podcast where we dive into the highs, lows, and did that really just happen moment of parenting teens and young adults. We're Carrie and Jessica, parent coaches, mythbusters, and occasional referees in the battle of hormones versus common sense.
If you've ever wondered, is this just happening to me? You're not alone. We are here to help you with real talk, expert advice, and hopefully a few laughs along the way. Need more support? We also offer private coaching, workshops, and speaking engagements because sometimes even parents don't have all the answers.
So continue listening as we tackle this parenting journey together.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Jessica. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Thank you. Just a little background on how this episode that we're about to do came to be. It's been about a year and a half since Carrie and I had on Chelsea Briggs, who was a high school teacher, and she shared with us that one of the biggest obstacles that she's facing in her classroom right now is online betting. And as Carrie and I closed our jaws and got to work, we started figuring out how we can dive more into this topic. We had gambling specialists on. We spoke about our own experiences with gambling and with addiction. Gambling and addiction keeps popping up for us in our social media feed. So one day we were scrolling, as we do for our content, looking for content, and we came across a video discussing gambling. And it wasn't just your PSA, it was raw, it was direct. And both of us looked at each other and we said, this is it. We have to get this guy on our show. And it was Trey Tucker, who is a licensed professional counselor and founder of Rugged Counseling. He actually is an author too. He wrote the book Tough Enough. And this book was actually, it is specifically written for men in their 20s. It's really a book unlike any other. He's built a following of people because he speaks to young men in a way that it actually lands with them. So here's the thing for us, for Carrie and I. Raising strong men doesn't just happen by accident. It takes parents who are willing to sit down, to pay attention, and have these tough conversations. That's why we're doing this. And that's why we have Trey with us today. So Trey, welcome to our show. We are so excited to have you with us today.
Thank you all for having me. I've been looking forward to this. It's going to be fun.
Well, Trey, we do have a whole list of topics we want to talk about. But before we got on, you mentioned something that I think it's so important to share with our listeners, with our parents there, talking about why you wanted to be on the show, why you wanted to talk to specifically moms. Can you just share what you said before we came on?
Yeah, if I'm trying to, and I'm trying to influence a generation of young men, whether it's, middle school, high school, college, the moms are the key gateway because they'll never really give you enough credit, if any. But when I talk to them one-on-one, these guys, they always talk about my mom is the one I go to when I'm down. She's the one that I vent to when I'm angry. She's the one I know I can go to make everything feel like it's going to be all right. Now, they'll tell me that, but they will likely not tell you that. So I want moms to know that that's usually the case between a mom and a son. And therefore, if I'm trying to influence guys I'll never meet, I've got to talk to the moms because they will listen to you, even if they're not acting like they'll listen to you. But you're planting the seeds in there. And when they walk away from you after they've rolled their eyes, they're going to think about what you said.
Yeah. So they're hearing us. They're just not maybe listening at the moment.
Right.
Exactly. Those words, they will grow.
Yeah. So moms, our listeners out there, just know that through the eye rolls, through the slam doors, they are hearing you. So
Yep.
that I just thought that was so important. That was such an important message to share.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. So you describe yourself as a guy's therapist. What does that mean and why? Why did you feel that there was a need for that? Tell us how you came to be.
I didn't want to go to therapy when I was younger. I didn't even really have a whole lot of experience around psychology, but I knew that there was stuff in me that if somebody had just directly said like, "Hey, I'm forcing you to talk about this stuff," then it actually would have benefited me. But I knew once I became a therapist, I can't be the typical therapist that you would see on TV or something. And frankly, the therapy world is made mostly of women. And so
Mhm.
a lot of guys, they look at the therapy world and they think, well, it's just girly stuff. And I didn't go directly into becoming a therapist out of college. I worked in the corporate world for a while. I did teaching, I did coaching. So I kind of talk like a coach and I don't talk with all the clinical jargon because it drives me nuts when somebody does that to me. So I just try to talk like maybe I would want to be talked to.
Mhm.
And guys just tend to gravitate to that because I don't use a whole lot of words. I kind of get straight to the point, and then I talk in a way that I at least it's like I tell guys like therapy, it's like an oil change for your brain. Like you
Mhm.
wouldn't drive your car for years and years and years without changing the oil. You need to go in and change the oil so get the sludge out of the system and then put some new stuff into the system. And that's really what therapy is. It's just an oil change for your brain. Now, sometimes there needs to be a little bit more work done on your engine or your brain, but therapy is just flushing out the crap and then putting in some new stuff.
I
Love that.
love the analogy because it speaks to so many young
Men.
men.
Yes.
It's something it's relatable.
Mhm.
Yes.
Instead of I imagine when you say that it's mostly women who in the therapy world that and please tell me if this is right or wrong, but I feel like boys, men, young men, they look at it like just talking about feelings, like all the feelings and touchy stuff and emotions, and it's not stuff that they're really willing to be introspective to look and talk about those things.
Yeah, that is the stereotype is it is all about the ooey gooey, touchy feely feeling stuff. And it can be, if somebody wants to do that, then that's fine. Like there is some truth to like you gotta let stuff out because emotions are chemicals. And if you keep them trapped in your body, then they'll just rot you from the inside out. But there's a lot of different ways of letting those chemicals out. It doesn't have to be always
Talking.
talking or sitting there and like feeling everything. So yeah, I bring a variety of different approaches so that guys know it's not just gonna be sitting there just Kleenex wiping their eyes the whole time.
So is this what led you to write your book, Tough Enough? And how did you end up gearing this towards the men in their 20s?
Yeah, so I wasn't even thinking about writing a book, and the publisher came to me and said, "Hey, we want you to write a book for men." And at first I thought, "What am I gonna write that hasn't already been
Yes.
written to men?" Because there's hundreds of books written to men. And then I did some research and I thought, well, there's never been a book written to guys specifically in their 20s from a mental health perspective. And that's the demographic that I really feel like I'm kind of called to the most. So I thought, well, let's just do that. And it's not a wide audience for the book. I know it's a niche book, but I thought it was important enough to let these guys know, like, hey, I
Mhm.
see you and there's a path here and there's something for you here that may not have been presented to you in the way that you might have heard it before.
Hmm. I love that. Do you find when your clients come to you to start a conversation, are they all there of their own choosing? Do they come independently, or is it usually someone that has recommended and said, "I really think you need to be speaking to someone professionally"?
Right now, it's probably 60-40, where 60% of them are coming on their own.
Mm,
Now, before COVID, it probably would have been only 30% of them who were there on their own,
okay.
but the conversation about mental health on social media has normalized things,
Mhm.
and it's helped guys realize like, "Oh, yeah, I need this too." So, yeah, there's a whole lot less shame about it. But there's still a significant portion who they've come in because their girlfriend or wife forced them to,
Mm,
or they're going through a breakup, or, they just graduated from college and they're basically just kinda at rock bottom and they got nowhere else to go because all the changes that have happened since graduating and moving to a new city and taking on a new job. It's just all the circumstances usually are the things that wind them up in my office.
right.
Can you talk to us about that group that stuck men, maybe just graduated from college, and how can you help them or guide them to move forward or get them unstuck?
Yeah, that early 20s range is the toughest time for a guy in my experience. And I know it's tough for women as well, especially like for the people who go to college and then graduate and then move to some other city. It's tough for guys and girls, but women tend to be better at leaning into the friendships,
Mhm.
whereas guys tend to just be like, I'm just gonna plow ahead and get things done." And there's some positives to that as well. But I've seen it wreck more guys that age group, at least because of that transition. There's a lot of grief that happens in that time period. And I try to explain to people grief doesn't just happen when somebody dies. It happens when
Mhm.
a big change happens
Mhm.
and when a big loss happens. And when you graduate from college, tons of big changes have
Yeah.
happened and you've lost a ton of stuff. You've lost
Sure.
your identity as a student that you've had for the previous whatever 18 years or however many years we're in school, and then you've lost your routine. You probably
Mhm.
lost a lot of at least in-person friendships, and then getting your first new job in the real world, that's a huge change to have to adjust to. And I mean, any first day on any job, no matter how old you are, is one of the top 5 stressful days that research shows. So it just it piles onto these guys, and usually they can handle it for like 6 months to a year, but then it's almost like the dam breaks and they're like, "What is happening to me? I don't know what." They can't understand it. And I'm like, "Well, welcome to the club. Here's."
So, going back to how we started and this piece of it, as parents, are there conversations we should be having with our kids? Are there questions we should be asking or red flags we should be looking for that our young men need help?
Yes, but those won't work unless both parents are modeling what they want the son or daughter to be also doing and saying. I remember I had a coach one time. He was asking me a bunch of questions, basically trying to get me to open up. And I remember thinking, "You've never said anything to us in a big group or in a one-on-one session or setting that makes me think that you do this yourself."
Mhm.
So, I would have been more open to opening up to him if I had already known that, oh, he's the type of guy that does this himself. And it works the same way with parents. If emotions never get talked about in the house, mom never brings them up, dad never brings them up, or especially for guys, if struggles never get talked about,
Mhm.
then of course the guy's not gonna talk about his own struggle because there's an unspoken message of, well, we just go through it and we don't really acknowledge the difficulty of it. So first model it, whatever you wanna see from your kid, and then when you try to get them to open up and do it too, it'll be a lot easier.
So would a lead-in conversation sound something like, you're graduating now. I know that's such a hard time. I remember when I graduated and I felt like this, and this. How are you feeling? I wanna do a check-in."
Yes. Yeah, and you don't even really have to ask that last question. You can just tell your story, and especially with guys, they're gonna take away the message, "I'm not the only one." Like, I'm not the only one that's scared about what's about to happen and
Mhm.
unsure because, "Oh, mom just said she had the same issues." Just that alone is plenty. If they wanna talk more about it, they will. You don't necessarily have to, like, ask them to say something. In fact, it may be better to just tell your story and then walk away. That way they know you don't have some agenda like, "Oh, here she goes
Mhm.
telling a story again, try to get me to open up," you know?
Right.
That agenda.
Uh-huh,
That agenda. Yeah.
uh-huh.
Well, it's funny because as parents, when you have younger kids, we have this, you know, overwhelming feeling of what our role is as a parent. Keep them safe, teach them right from wrong.
Mhm.
But no one in there tells us show your kids your mistakes and your failures. We feel like we're only supposed to be showing the right choice and the right way. And I feel like for me personally, if I could go all the way back again, I have a 24 and 26-year-old, both men.
Mm.
That's what I would do differently. Was we did talk about it later on, but it didn't start early enough. I don't know what I'm doing. Do you ever feel that way? Or I wish that could just be normalized with young families, with young parents that start talking about that it doesn't always work so easily and we're not always going to make the right choices and share that instead of feeling like that's my job as the parent is to guide them the right way.
Right.
Yeah. And I get it because there's a fear underneath the surface saying, well, if I talk about my mistakes, then maybe my son's going to repeat the mistakes.
Yes.
Like, I
Yes.
get it. I totally get the fear. But if you zoom out and think about it, they already see plenty of examples of people making mistakes. It's not like you're going to open up this whole new world of like, oh, I could do that. But
Right.
when you talk about your own mistakes, and of course, there's boundaries. You shouldn't tell them every single freaking detail, but
Yeah.
like if you at least open the door saying like, hey, here's some of my screw ups and like, here's why I did them and here's what I wish I could have done differently, then not only does that let them know that you're human and that they can trust you more, but it also shows them that they don't have to be perfect. But if they feel this pressure of like, well, mom only gives me these idealized stories, so I got to live up to that. Well,
Mhm.
that's actually probably going to make them rebel more because they know they can't live up to it. So they think, well, why even bother? I'm just going to go full on hell mode.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Something that comes up for us a lot in talking about parents and parenting is the terms helicopter and snow plowing parents.
Mhm.
And the fact that our generation of parenting, because of the way we were parented, and parents were so hands off that as parents, we jumped in full, ready for battle, ready to take all obstacles away from our kids, make their lives as easy as possible, be involved, over involved, and doing everything for them. And it's led to this generation of what I don't really love the term, but failure to launch,
Mhm.
where this particular age group is just stuck in what to do next. Are you seeing kids come in and talk about that? Kids, I keep calling them kids. I know they're young adults, but they're always our kids. But do you see that? Young adults come in and actually express that my parents did so much for me? I don't know how to do this for myself.
Sometimes they have that self-awareness. A lot of times that awareness doesn't really hit them until their late 20s, early 30s, because when you're right in the midst of the circumstance, that's all you know. Fish doesn't know it's in water just because that's its normal
Hmm.
world. Most of the younger guys, they don't realize that their parents maybe have taken away the challenges, but later on, and it hits them and like, oh, well, now I'm going to do the complete opposite. And then we have this whole problem of like one extreme or the other. Neither extreme has the answer. It's like, let's nuance it toward the middle.
Right. That's something else we've spoken about, the extremes of cutting off contact with your family. And
Yeah, it's disgusting. We can go on a whole soapbox about that.
Yes, we can. Is there any time in your practice that would even possibly be a recommendation from you to a guy?
If there is a harm situation,
Mhm.
then yes. And if there is a situation where the person, whether it's a family member or whoever, if the person just repeatedly destroys the situation that they show up in, whether it's a dinner or an event or something, then yeah, either reduce the amount of time you spend with them, or maybe go full cutoff mode. But it's the same idea of when we're younger. If our parents take away our difficulties, then we don't get any stronger. And in the same way as an adult, if we just go no contact with difficult people, then we stay weak because we don't have to deal with conflict.
Yes.
And so it's really the same concept. If I've been taught to just avoid discomfort and avoid conflict, then that's probably going to be my mode for the rest of my life until really life forces me to have to change something. But going back to the idea of a parent being a helicopter or a snowplow, again, their intentions are great. I always
Mhm.
want to start with like, yeah,
Right.
let's take the action, but let's take your intention underneath the action, because that probably had a good intention. It's just it worked itself out in an action that didn't really create the results you wanted.
Mhm.
And now, so I get it. Like a parent who may be overly involved, yeah, they love their kid. They don't want to see them suffer. And then what they also don't realize is that when you pull a kid out of a difficulty, you're basically telling the kid, I don't believe in you and I
Yeah.
don't believe you can handle this. And you can explain it while leaving them in the difficulty. I love you too much to pull you out of this
Mhm.
because I know that life is tough. And so therefore you have to be tough as well. And I'm going to be right here beside you. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm also not going to rescue you because that's going to be hurting you in the long run.
I love that. I love actually being able to say that to your child.
Mm-hmm.
It might not feel like it right now, but I am doing this because I do love you and
Yeah.
because I want you to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that you can.
Right.
Yes, I know you
And I
can.
know you can. Yeah.
Believe in you. And it's the same way what I tell guys too is like difficulties in life are like the weight room. Like if you're playing a sport, you are going to get beaten in your sport if you don't go into the weight room and put heavy weight on your shoulders and go through the pain of having to push that weight up. And it's the same way in life. If you don't actually go through the pain of having to push the weight of life, then you're going to get into other circumstances and just get flattened because you got to be strong. And the only way to be strong is to go through the hard stuff.
I love you. You're full of great analogies,
Yeah.
Trey.
That's the coaching background. Yeah, you got to get that.
Yeah. It's a good combo.
Yes,
Good combo.
for
All
sure.
right. So can you talk to us about anxiety and how anxiety is trying to help?
Yeah. Anxiety is just back to the metaphor thing. Anxiety is a check engine light. Any emotion, really, an unpleasant emotion is a check engine light in your car. And it's just trying to get your attention to let you know, like, hey, check under the hood. There's something that needs to be adjusted in the engine. So the literal check engine light in a car, it is annoying and we want it gone. And so like we figured out how can I like pull the wires apart to get this thing to turn off, right? So like, cause it's uncomfortable. But all it's trying to do is say, look, hey, there's some other problem. So it's trying to annoy you enough to make you look at what's causing
Inside.
inside. Exactly. And that's what anxiety does. Anxiety, it thinks that anything that's uncertain or uncomfortable is literally going to end your life. It doesn't think logically. Its only job is to keep you alive, and it just misjudges what's actually a threat. So it sees like a public speaking speech or like a test or anything like that, and because it has an uncertain outcome, that part of us thinks, well, that might kill us. And so
Oh.
anxiety comes to like warn us, like, oh, we're under attack, we're under attack. And so that's why you get those uncomfortable feelings like in the chest or, wherever you feel the anxiety. Your body thinks that something catastrophic is about to happen.
That's I never looked at it or heard it explained like that, but it's true. I mean, you get anxious about whatever it is that's upcoming, and those are the emotions and feelings that take over.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's easy to get scared of those feelings. And then that makes those feelings even worse.
Yes.
So, in
So
fact,
so what tools as parents can we give to our kids to help them through those moments? And
yeah,
even adults, what should we have in our toolbox to help us through that?
it goes back to modeling. So, talk about whatever you're feeling, get enough connection with what's happening in your own body at any random moment, and then that way you can talk about it. If you're washing the dishes and your son or daughter is right there in the kitchen with you, and you start noticing, I'm feeling some sort of like sadness or some sort of worry. Where do I feel that in my body? Okay, well, I feel it in my chest. I have this butterfly sort of fluttery feeling in my chest. Just say that out loud while you're just doing the dishes. Just make it part of your normal thing. You're just checking in with your body because every emotion starts in the body and then it becomes a thought. And so if you can notice those physical sensations and then tell your kids like, hey, here's the rhythm I'm trying to get into, then they're going to pick that up eventually as well.
And I think that they're not then going to be scared of having those feelings and thinking, oh, something's wrong with me.
Exactly.
No one feels this way,
Right.
but we all feel this way.
Yeah, we all feel it. We all feel it. And especially guys, we think that we basically have two emotions. It's either flat or angry. There's so much more in between. I thought that too for a long time. And even as a therapist, I was scared of anxiety, my own anxiety. I was like, oh, I got to defeat this. Like it's the enemy. But that made it worse. I have to actually make friends with it in a way because it really is just trying to help. So if I can allow those feelings to kind of talk themselves out, so to speak, or just allow those feelings to work their way through my system, and I realized like, oh, life is just richer because I have more than just two modes,
Yes. Yeah. I have a friend who actually names her anxiety. So calls it something. And so she'll say, let's just call it Simon. Simon, I see you. I'm
Yes.
acknowledging you're there. right? Almost like you're my friend, you're not my enemy. And so just acknowledging you're there and then deciding what you're then gonna do with Simon. But yeah.
Exactly. So perfect. It's so perfect. It's like, have y'all seen the movie Inside Out? Either the first or the second one?
Yes, yes. Mhm.
That really is. That's how our nervous system works. Is there's these little parts, these little emotions that think that their job is like to just take over, and they are trying to help, but they need to realize because we can actually like work with them, like that woman with Simon.
Yeah.
If we work with them, they start to work together instead of just grabbing the steering wheel and taking over everything.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. You're bringing up, Inside Out, and one of our favorite reels that you did was, your review on Shrinking
Mm,
when Harrison Ford and Jason Segel are having that moment in the last episode where Harrison Ford is telling Jason Segel, "I love you," and your comment was that every young man, every man needs to hear this from another adult man in their life.
yes.
Why? Why is that? Why was that so important for you to make, and what spoke to you about that clip?
Yeah, and this comes down to why we need both mom and dad. I don't know why people think it has to be some sort of competition. Like, do they need mom more or dad more? It's like, stop. We need both. Like there's parts of the personality in both that make up a child, and so as much as the mom can typically give all of her wonderful qualities, there's certain qualities that she just doesn't have, and therefore the dad has to come in and complement there. And there's plenty of qualities the dad doesn't have that the mom has to bring in. And so, with that being said, there is something in both a man and a woman's heart that they wonder, am I going to be all right? Does dad believe in me? There's a strength and a confidence that comes from knowing like, okay, yeah, I'm strong and I can handle this, and dad's gonna be there for me. I don't wanna oversimplify it here, but a lot of times mom can bring emotional safety, and a lot of times dad can bring emotional strength. And
Mm,
I'm not saying those can't cross over. It's just that if since we're
Mm.
talking about complementing each other, those tend to be the spectrums here. So anyway, that's a long answer of saying every guy and girl, I would say too, but since the scene was man to
Right.
man, if they can hear those words, "You're strong, I believe in you, and I love you,
Mhm.
and I'm here for you," from another man, man to man, because a woman can't give masculinity to a man, and a man can't give femininity
Mhm.
to a woman, and so when we hear that as guys from an older man who's been through stuff, it's like, "All right, well, if he says it, then that must be true."
Does that put our population of young people who do not have a constant male role model in their life at risk?
Absolutely, it does. That is, if somebody forced me to say, what is the biggest thing that we could change to change society? I would say, let's get better fathers and more father figures. It's not just two birds with one stone, it's like 20 birds with one stone.
Mhm.
My whole goal when I talk to older guys, I beg them to become a mentor for somebody younger. Even if the guy is 23, I'm like, find somebody who's 17 and mentor him.
Mhm.
You don't have to have it all figured out, because even guys in their 70s and 80s will tell you they ain't got it all figured out. So, yes, I try to get more father figures to get involved with guys that aren't their sons, and I try to strengthen dads to be a better dad to their own son.
yeah. And so, but if you don't have a dad, it could be an uncle, a
Yep.
teacher, a coach, right? So it just really has to be an older male figure for those that might not be raised or their dad's not alive. My husband lost his dad at a young age, so he did not have that, but he did have a brother and uncles and other male role models. But I get it. Moms, we can do a lot, but I do see how sometimes our sons are going to need that that man, whoever that man is that they trust.
Yeah.
I think actually my husband said his male guidance counselor in high school was a role model for him at that time of his life, and he had kept in touch with him once he went to college and so on. So,
I love it. I love
yeah.
it.
And I hope that with the work you're doing, that we're just creating more and more strong male role models for our growing boys.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Like I said, I try to tell the older guys to seek out the younger guys, and I try to tell the younger guys move in the direction of some older guy. Like ask,
Mhm.
like, hey, can we go have lunch sometime, or can we go, I don't know, play frisbee golf or something, just to be hanging out. You don't have to make it some formal thing. Will you be my mentor? You know,
Right,
just
right,
Yeah.
right, right. Just
hanging out.
All right. Well, so we really want to, before we end our conversation today, get into the addictions, gaming, porn, alcohol, drug, whatever they are. But our concerns seem to be in this younger boys, 12, 14, already starting with gambling.
Mhm,
it's just
And how do we as parents, what do we need to know and
mhm.
what can we do better to pay attention to things maybe that we're missing?
Yeah.
before you answer that, Trey, because I mean those are really important questions. I had a brother who was a gambling addict, so this really speaks to me. But when you said that gambling is an engineered addiction, like that it's frustrating. It makes me angry. What's going on? What is happening to our society? How is this okay? I that just really, really spoke to me. So,
Yeah, well, thank you. And to why is society allowing this? It goes back to money. I mean, almost any question anybody has about almost anything, if you really drill down to the answer, it's money. And there's just too many companies profiting off of people making impulsive, risk-oriented decisions. And while we know it's bad in the long term, it helps these executives keep their jobs longer and get their pay even higher and get their stock price even higher and make
right.
ESPN better ratings and, all the stuff.
Mhm.
So I don't know big picture how we stop this. I know individually how to do it, but it's got to be both and. It's got to be individual decisions, but it's also got to be a cultural shift because it's just if you put the temptation of gambling in people's faces long enough, I don't care how strong internally they are, they're going to give in at some point. But I'll zoom out for a second. Addictions are always just a symptom. So, like, whenever somebody comes to see me about an addiction, I just straight up tell them, I'm like, I don't really care what you're addicted to. And I kind of pause just to see what their reaction is.
Mhm.
And because what I tell them is, your addiction is just meeting a need. So let's focus more on what need are you trying to get filled. And then if we can fill that need in a healthier way, we don't have to sit here and wrestle with your actual addiction to whatever the thing is. And with gambling, especially with guys, it's risk and it's adrenaline. And that's what we thrive on. It's why we love action movies and all the, skydiving and bungee jumping and whatever the adrenaline rush stuff in the physical world is. Now we have it delivered to us on our phones so I
Mhm.
can get my adrenaline rush and my risk right here without actually having to make a bunch of effort. And so that's where we start. I'm like, okay, what needs are being filled here? And do you want to keep meeting these needs this way?
What do we need to know as parents? How do we monitor it? What red flags are we looking for? I have clients that I've worked with who see alcohol and drugs as the only two vices that you really need to worry about. When their son started gambling, betting with friends on sports, that's not a big deal. He has a different addiction. I mean, it's still, what are we looking at here? So what do we need our parents to look for, to conversations that need to be had, red flags, what happens when all of it, when it's too late, how do they jump in and save them if they can be?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, the stats on alcohol and drugs, it shows that with teenagers and with young adults, they are actually declining. They're drinking less, they're using drugs less, they're
Huh.
actually having less sex. And it's mainly because they're not socializing as much.
Hmm.
It's not like they're making these wise
Wow.
decisions. It's
Right.
just that they've got this entertainment right here. So why do they need to go out and seek the physical stuff? And so that's number one. We got to give these phones to these kids later in life.
Hmm.
That means the parent is gonna be the bad guy, and it's probably gonna be making the kids seem uncool among their peers and all that stuff. But do you love them enough to actually protect them? And that means being the bad guy to protect them. So that's part of it. Give the phone later. And then also, you can prevent this stuff by having the type of relationship with your child where it's open communication. And that, again, I keep beating this dead horse, but it starts with the parent modeling the openness. And then that encourages the kid to say, like, all right, well, here's what my friends are doing. You can even ask, like, hey, what do y'all see your friends getting tempted by? It's a lot easier for them to talk about their friends in general. Don't make them like name specific friends,
Sure, sure.
but it's a lot easier for them to talk about like what they see happening around kids their age. And then you can assume that since they see it in kids their age, that they're also facing it themselves. So you can kind of externalize it by saying, what percentage of your friends do you think are gambling right now? And just let them talk. Don't drive any kind of lessons or agendas. But if you already have that openness with them, then if they really do start facing that true temptation, then they're going to come to you. Now, if you weren't able to do all that sort of prevention work, then on the rescue side of things, man, there's so many. The red flag itself is just being on the phone too much, but you could also talk about like uh, card games in general or sports, and just see what direction they take those conversations, because they're probably going to hide a gambling addiction as long as they can, at least from you. But if you can just start talking about the things that get gambled on and just notice their reaction, then that's going to be a pretty good indication about like, do they have a problem here? Are they acting sketchy when you talk about card games or sports lines on games and things like that? But it also comes down to, if you own this phone that you give them, then you got to put the restrictions on the apps that they can have as well. And we can go, there's a whole list of
Right.
things in terms of what to do, but those are just a few to start with.
I know not every young man who plays fantasy football or poker with their friends. A lot of guys do use it as a way to socialize, a game of poker with your friends. Are there risk factors? Are more kids at risk than others for these social events turning into addictions?
That's a good question. I don't know what the stats would say about that, about who would be more vulnerable to that type of an addiction. I know I can tell you this. Any addiction, the solution to any addiction is connection. So if somebody has really deep connections with family, with friends, they are much less likely to become addicted. Or if they do become addicted, they are much more likely to recover from that addiction because of the connections that get built afterward. And the isolation is a huge indicator for addiction. So I don't know. I have to look deeper into the
Okay.
gambling stats, but yeah.
So you say isolation. The parent who is worried about their kid, their young teenage, let's say 12, 13 years old, who's stuck in their room
Mm,
on video games all day long.
no.
What do we do? How do we help those kids? What do we tell those parents to tell their kids?
Yeah, you start with what are your hopes and dreams for your kid, because you want to find common ground with them. If you start just telling them immediately what to do, they get defensive. We all do. We don't want to be told what to do right off the bat. But if we can get on the same ground about what are your hopes and your dreams for your kid, and then we look at like, okay, well, how much time are they spending in front of screens? And then is that going to allow them to achieve those hopes and dreams? Then you can help them see that discrepancy. But if you just come in and say like, boom, stop your kid from, they're probably not going to listen. But the truth is, the later you can on the phones, I think what they're recommending right now is, I want to say maybe 14 or
14.
15.
Yes,
That's right.
14. Yep.
Yeah. But the average age that somebody gets exposed to pornography right now is 9, because so many kids have gotten a phone that early or younger.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And so like
And what can we stop right there for a minute?
Mhm.
So what does that do
Mm.
if our 9 and 10-year-olds are exposed to porn at such a young age and we're
Mhm.
completely unaware
Mhm.
as parents? Should we be having conversations earlier? What does that do to the normal development of, of sexual feelings for a young person? Does that somehow change their course?
It does, and it can. And the sad thing is, this is such a new phenomenon that we don't have enough research to show exactly what it's going to do long term.
Okay.
But we know for sure that the brain in the first 10 years of its life is the most impressionable. Things that happen in those first 10 years have a massive impact on it. And yeah, after 10, there's still some things that do have a massive impact, but for the most part, it's those first 10 years. And part of it is because our brains are so changeable in those years. So when you get exposed to some graphic images on a screen, there is an explosion of chemicals like dopamine and other things that would make me sound like a nerd if I start listing them off. But the explosion happens to a brain that is not ready for that explosion yet. And so the addiction immediately starts, and the hooks, the grip of that addiction are much, much stronger to a 9-year-old brain than to like a 15-year-old brain, because a 15-year-old brain, even though it's not fully ready, it at least has some discernment of like, okay, this isn't healthy for me. But a 9-year-old just thinks, well, this is an amazing rush.
Right. And it probably feels good.
It feels good. Yeah. And there's probably some shame and some morality in there that they know this isn't right, but they don't have the internal drive and discipline to say, okay, I'm going to avoid this, because again, their brains are too young for that. So that's just the beginning of it. Yeah. That's one of the biggest thing that scares me is the exposure to these images at such a young age.
Oh my goodness. That one I was not
we're
prepared for
usually
that
not
one.
Yeah, we're usually not speechless.
Right. There's not much anymore that can shock us, but that one was oof.
Yeah, these images, you talked about gambling being a design addiction. Pornography is as well, just on a different level, because they understand the brain. They know what's going to keep it coming back for more. And what those images do is it literally rewires our brain, and it hijacks the chemicals that are meant for healthy sexual activity and hijacks them toward unhealthy sexual activity. And so at an appropriate age, the kid needs to understand that sex in and of itself has a healthy purpose, just like fire. But if you take fire out of the fireplace and just spread it all around wherever you want, it gets really destructive.
I can only imagine how seeing those images at such a young age also reflects how they will treat the opposite sex as they get older.
Oh, yeah. And women are seeing pornography more now as well. And I don't mean just grown women. I'm talking about teenage girls and even younger. And that has led to them becoming more promiscuous in middle school and high school. And yeah, it's an epidemic.
The only way we can control this as parents right now is no screens and no access, unlimited access to social media until we feel each parent has to make the own choice for their own child. They're emotionally mature enough to start to regulate or understand, or have already had all of these conversations about what they might see. Like when we gave, thankfully, I'm thankful of raising my kids when I did. I mean, they didn't have phones till they were in middle school, but it was only cell phone and texting ability at that time. But a lot of times now, parents are just giving their kids a phone with full access to whatever the family has access to without any discussion or what this, it's a huge responsibility. I think someone had said you wouldn't have drugs in your hand and give it to your child, like, here, go do what you may with, out any conversations, but that seems to be kind of what's happening.
Right.
And I think our intent as parents is, we just want to be able to get in touch with them. Or for them to be able to get in touch and make plans with their friends on their own. Not all of the other.
Well, there's also everyone else has a phone, so here you go.
Yep, exactly. You don't want to be the bad guy. There's plenty of ways to let them make plans and for you to communicate with them without giving them a full smartphone.
Yep.
But whenever they do get a full smartphone and you're still paying for it, you tell them, hey, you are stewarding this. This is my phone. And you can use it. And I have the right whenever I want to check any app that I want. And I need you to, as parents, I need you to check those apps because Have y'all heard that they will disguise certain apps as like a calculator app, but it's really Snapchat or it's really some other inappropriate app. But you would look at the icon and think, well, that's a harmless app. But I need you to click every app and look
check.
at the messages and check.
I feel like as a society, we take some steps forward, as in with counseling and mental health, and people are becoming more aware of what's out there, and mental health is not so taboo anymore. But then some of these conversations, like the porn and the gambling and the isolation, it's just what are we doing here? Like as the advances that we're making are being negated by, like you said, like the big companies, like people looking to make money off of our young people. It's
Mhm.
just
Yeah. And so therefore,
very
let me take
frustrating.
some pressure off of the parents. You are never going to be able to shield your kid from every negative thing and every temptation. Like that's just impossible.
Right.
And that's where the relationship comes in. Have you built an open enough relationship and a strong enough bridge for them to be able to openly talk about what they're seeing and what they're facing? Because again, cut yourself some slack. As vigilant as you are going to be able to be, you're
Right.
never going to be able to block every arrow that gets shot toward them.
Right.
Yep.
But what you're saying makes all the sense in the world. It's your relationship, it's your communication, and the fact that you're not their best friend. You are there to parent them and to guide them and not rescue them, not save them, but be their parent. And it doesn't end just because they've gone off to college or just because they're in their first job. They might still come to you for advice. Your job is to be there, to check in on them, to make sure that they're okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. They still need you as old as they get, they will still need you.
Yep. And I loved your advice about having conversation just to have conversation and not that you're trying to make a point. So
Yeah.
No agenda.
modeling, sharing thoughts and feelings that you have or open-ended questions about, what's going on with you and your friends, but with no agenda and no follow-up questions, just so you can keep that conversation open and they feel like every time you come to them, it's not for something. I know a lot of moms say, like, I love having my child alone in the car with me because they love to talk. And we just have to remember, let them talk and just listen. Don't start asking questions or that's that moment you're going to get this in and, talk about this, but openly listen and just have them chat and share and just be
Yes.
interested in what they're saying without a
Yes.
purpose. Yeah.
So good. Couldn't
So,
put it better myself.
all right. So, where can our listeners follow your work, get your book? If someone has a son right now that wants to reach out to you or a young adult, what are the best places for our listeners to do that?
Yeah, so first, the book, I'm donating anything I make off of that to organizations that help young men and also end human trafficking, because that's a big issue for me. And then to get the book, it's just called Tough Enough. So you can find it at Barnes & Noble stores or Amazon or wherever. Rugged Counseling is the social media. So any of those platforms, you can find this ugly face there.
Oh, are you taking new clients?
At the moment, I'm not able to. I hate that too, but it's just the schedule just doesn't allow for it at this moment. But I'm trying to look into starting some groups, like online
Mhm.
Zoom type groups,
Okay.
because there's plenty of folks that do want to be able to talk about this stuff, and I want to give them an
Mhm.
avenue for that. So if somebody wants to ask about that, you can email me at Trey@ruggedcounseling.com. So Trey at
Okay, great.
rugged.com.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much. We
Yes, thank
have
you.
loved our conversation. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us and to share with all of our listeners. So thank you. And thanks, Jess. If you're
Thank
out there
you.
listening, please share this episode with a friend. And you can follow us, Parent Coaches Unleashed, on Instagram and TikTok. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed with Carrie and Jessica. Together, we can raise the next generation of independent, capable, and compassionate young adults.
We encourage you to send us an email with questions and feedback to info@parentcoachesunleashed.com. Please remember, you are not alone on this parenting journey.